I saw something today on X put out by Coach Yak regarding Colton McKivitz. And whenever the 49ers offensive line comes into question, I feel like I want to jump in to the mix. And so this is what has been said. And I kind of want to talk about the reaction that has come from it. So Matt Barrows was talking with Tim Kawakami. I believe it was on their podcast, I'm assuming, um, where he's talking about, and he's quoted by saying, the front office think Colton McKivitz is the bee's knees. They love McKivitz. Um, and obviously, 49er fans hear this, they start freaking out because 49er fans have had it out for that right tackle position ever since it was even before McKivitz, but when it was Mike McGlinchey. And so obviously Colton McKivitz has now started 2 years at right tackle. Right tackle, which I don't even consider to be Colton McKivitz's most natural position. I think he would actually be better at guard. But I also am going to push back on all the fans who constantly come after Colton McKivitz, because I really do think that he did take big strides from year one to year two as a starter. Now, keep in mind, he's kind of floated around. And I also think it's important to note his contract, what he's getting paid, on top of the production that he is able to put up as well, playing right tackle for the San Francisco 49ers. So let's talk about some of the production, because when I hear a lot of fans pushing back on Colton McKivitz, I hear a lot about the pressures. I hear a lot about the sacks, and I hear a lot about these metrics and grades coming from places like PFF. And I'll share with you what Colton McKivitz did last year in 2024. According to PFF, Colton McKivitz gave up 36 pressures, 28 quarterback hurries, 6 quarterback hits, and 2 sacks. I actually think he gave up 3 sacks, if I'm not mistaken, because I believe he gave up 2 against the Rams in week 3, and then I think 1 sack beyond that. But anyways, people are going to hear those numbers and they're like, oh, that's terrible. But when you really compare them to what he did in 2023, his first year as a starting right tackle, he put up 59 pressures, 44 hurries, 6 quarterback hits, which was the same as last year, but 9 sacks given up. So he goes from 9 sacks to 2, 59 pressures to 36, 44 hurries to 28. And I just want to also put some additional context to anyone who wants to use PFF's numbers. If you were to take Jalen Moore's hurries and extrapolate them over the amount of snaps that Colton McKivitz played and you average them out, Jalen Moore was on pace for giving up 28 hurries. And as we know, Jalen Moore signed a 2-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. That makes him their starting left tackle of the future. And I've pushed back on the notion, even when Jalen Moore was signed, I was like, oh, yeah, that's great. Like, good for Jalen Moore. That's a great opportunity for him. I'm not too worried about him going over to the Kansas City Chiefs because, as you guys know, I watch the offensive line. I study the offensive line. I watch them play week in, week out. And I would have told you that when Jalen Moore was playing left tackle, although he played serviceably, he wasn't better than Colton McKivitz at right tackle. And that's just me using my eyes and watching them play. I still thought that although Jalen was serviceable, there's still some technical things that he needed to clean up. He was kind of wild in certain situations. And of course, you got to shout out to the quarterback for bailing everyone out, not just Colton and or Jalen Moore. So the point being is that I know a lot of people are going to come back and they're going to start talking about these numbers. This is how I hear the conversation when it comes to this situation over and over again. Just a lot of look at his pressure rate, look at the pass rush win rate against him, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, it's really hard. I don't judge offensive line play through offensive line metrics. It's not something that I do. I don't make an opinion off of O line play, off of metrics. And I just want to share this little piece from Brandon Thorne, who is O line, D line analyst for Bleacher Report, O line masterminds. He's a Joe Moore Award voter. Um, for voting for the most outstanding offensive line unit in football. Like, he is considered to be the top offensive line guy kind of around on the internet right now, and he's been doing this for years. He's a guy that I have a ton of respect for. I've met multiple times, we compare notes pretty often. And he was given a big old list, kind of showcasing different grades from offensive line prospects based on pass rush win rate. And with how these things are set up, you've got Will Campbell way down here, and you've got, all these other players, few and far in between. And his response to this is, I appreciate the intent behind filtering O-line grades like this, but it still falls significantly short of watching complete games of players, assessing competition, adjacent O line, seeing jump sets on PAPs, quick passes, short drop passes, all excluded here via PFF. Not to mention assessing quarterback play, which is often the primary driver of sacks and pressures. So while this is probably a better way of viewing raw offensive line grades, watching the games and taking detailed notes will still get you much closer to the truth, especially regarding offensive line play. This is my pushback all the time on O-line play, and specifically in regards to Colton McKivitz, because last year he played much better than the grades would say, much better than the pressures would say, much better than all of those things would say. Now, that still doesn't mean that Colton McKivitz is the best right tackle in football. I'm not saying that either. Like, he is probably, I would say, in the top 32 of starting NFL tackles in the league. Or you could even go as far as saying, 32. Yeah, I think he might be top 32, but probably closer to the 30s or 20s range, which isn't really that bad when you think about the fact that Colton McKivitz made $4.5 million last year, which is insane. That is insane value for a starter to make that money, to put up what he was able to do, because you just saw the example that I made to Jalen Moore, who got $15 million a year, who did not start nearly as much as Colton McKivitz. Now, I think Colton McKivitz has a capped ceiling. I'm not sure he will ever be a top 15, top 20 guy, but if he can hang around the early 20s in regards to his play and how much he's getting paid, arguably the biggest steal on the entire roster right now for the San Francisco 49ers. Offensive line play is so hard to find. It's so challenging to find serviceable offensive linemen, let alone good offensive linemen, let alone great offensive linemen. It's a challenge, and it always has been a challenge. So I think the conversation about Colton McKivitz is a skewed one. It doesn't give the full context. People don't understand that this guy is getting paid backup money and has been a starter for 2 years. He improved from year 1 to year 2, and I think he's actually going to take a jump into year 3. So it'll be fascinating to see, especially what the 49ers do in the draft, because there is a world that exists where they could take a tackle, maybe a right tackle, and then kick him into guard, maybe left guard, to replace Aaron Banks, which honestly I feel like would be his best position. I feel like Colton McKivitz is built to be a guard, that is playing tackle and is serviceable at tackle, but I think he could play pretty solidly at guard. You put Ben Barch at center or to compete with Brendel and Matt Hennessy. But basically, the point is like the 49ers like Colton McKivitz for a reason because he can play both sides. He can play nearly every position on the offensive line, and he's not as bad as people think. Yes, getting beat sometimes looks bad, and he doesn't look great all the time. There's definitely moments where he loses, and you're like, "Oh, we could have done better on that one, Colton." But he's not contextualized properly in the average fan's analysis. And that's why it comes across like I don't think, I'm not going to tell you guys how to feel. You guys watch the replays. You do that. You see what you see. But you guys know how I operate. After a game ends, I refuse to give you an offensive line analysis because for me to feel comfortable in being able to assess O line, even if I just watch the entire game, whether live or on the broadcast, I haven't seen enough to be able to assess the whole thing. I have to go into the tape, the all 22, and break it down play by play, frame by frame for me to really be able to understand what is happening because there are so many moving parts on the O line. There's so many things that go into it that, we saw fans come after Colton McKivitz for the Super Bowl play with Chris Jones, and it wasn't even Colton McKivitz. It might look like it's Colton McKivitz, but it's not. So that's the thing with O line. It's really challenging to to evaluate if you don't have like a working knowledge of it. I played offensive line, so for me it's very natural and like I get it. I understand the challenges. I understand what they're up against. I get the process of it. I understand what they're looking for, what they're keying on, how doubles work, how the guy next to you either helps you or is a disadvantage to you, how the quarterback impacts this, how the defensive play call impacts it, how the a stunt or a blitz can change how something looks or who's responsible. So that's basically what Brandon was saying is you can pull all these metrics as much as you want, but they will never properly contextualize offensive line play like watching the film. And so for as me, it's just what I do. I watch the O line. It's I enjoy it. So every week I break down the film and I pointed to Colton has improved from last year. And again, if Colton McKivitz is putting up top 25, top 30 play out of every tackle in the league, that is such a good thing to have considering the value he presents. And I just think fans need to speak with him with a little bit more respect on Colton McKivitz. I'm not telling you to say that Colton is the best right tackle in the league. I'm not even telling you to say he's a top 15 right tackle in the league. I just think if he's right around there, if he's hovering around that 15 mark between like just right, if you just right tackle and he's hanging around top 15, I mean, that is an amazing value for a guy who is only making 4.5 a year, or at least just last year. So that's just my thought on it. It's obviously a long-winded rant. I you know, I talk about this often. Um, and I think the truth lies more in the middle with what fans' perception of him is. That's all I'm saying. Not telling you how to think, not telling you what to believe, but I'm just telling you what the tape bears out to me and the trends that I've seen in him and watching the film and watching him perform and how he's won and how he's progressed. I just don't think he's needs to be replaced. I think there's this notion that fans think he's so bad that he has to be replaced. I don't think that. I think as long as you're getting that value at right tackle, you have to ride with that because he is arguably the best value on the team when it comes to contract wise. And we all know how you're paid is how you're perceived. And the fact that he is making backup money yet is perceived like he should be performing like a top 10 right tackle is kind of crazy to me. But at the end of the day, he's performing closer to being a top 10 tackle than he is to being the worst tackle in the league. And that's just my perception of it. But you can disagree with me in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.